Hey guys, welcome back to Smart Simple Fit. Today, we're going to talk about the top workout vices. So what do I mean by that? Well, by vices, what I mean is just that these are some of the worst habits that you can have in your exercise program, right, in your routine. These habits could be stopping you from reaching your full potential. Now, these are going to apply whether or not you're a beginner or even if you've been working out for years. These mistakes could be holding you back. So we're going to cover all 6 today. Relatively briefly, this shouldn't be too long of a video, but before we get started, if you could hit that like button and click subscribe, it'd mean a lot to me. All right, let's jump right into it. So, number 1, lack of intensity and overall just basic progression. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you've been training your calves for a while and you're one of these people who's convinced it's impossible to grow your calves, chances are you're using a weight that's too light. Same can be said if you're using cable machines for various isolations, whether that's pec flies or cable curls or triceps pushdowns or something like that. There's a tendency with the cable machine where, you get this large, smooth, constant tension, this large range of motion. And, you can certainly feel the burn doing 15 to 20 slow reps with a variety of different weights. But just because you feel the burn on the set doesn't mean you're working hard enough to grow. Okay, you need to keep that in mind. So what we need to focus on is finding an appropriate intensity. What would be appropriate intensity? Well, this is very subjective, but I personally believe that if you do, regardless of the rep range, okay, whether it's a set of 5 or 10 or 15 or 20, you need to have less than a handful of reps in reserve. Now that might sound obvious, but a lot of people think they're going to failure or at least a lot closer to failure. They think it's a hard set when in reality they have 5 to 10 reps in reserve. We need to avoid that. So you might just simply need to add 1 or 2 more stacks on that cable machine. And if you're doing dumbbell calf raises, right, with a dumbbell in each hand, if you're using 30 pounds in each hand, try doing 35, try doing 40, try doing 50. You'd be surprised how strong your calves actually are. Bump up that frequency a little bit too, and maybe that volume. But point is, not working out with a heavy enough weight is holding you back. Another good example is back extensions. Alexander Bromley recommends these. Baloney Man recommends these. I recommend these. A lot of people recommend these as a good deadlift accessory and just overall posterior chain builder. But they're only going to work if you load them. If you're doing it with no weight or with 45 pounds, that might not be enough to get a meaningful stimulus. So try doing it with 30 pounds in each hand, dumbbell style, or try putting 10-pound bumpers on each side with an Olympic barbell. Try 65 pounds. Try it holding at least a plate. Okay, if you're not using at least a plate, you're probably not growing. And even then, you'd be surprised. Some of my recent PRs were 200-pound back extensions for 3 reps and 180 for 7. So if I can do that, you can certainly start with half of that and make some solid gains at the very least. Overall basic progressions. So if it's been months since you've tried adding 5 pounds to the bar, add 5 pounds to the bar. This is especially going to apply to leg movements where people are hesitant to push themselves harder, like squats and leg presses and leg extensions and hamstring curls, things like that. Add more weight, okay? Accumulate some reps. If you haven't hit a rep PR in a while and you've just been doing 3 sets of 12 for 2 months, that's a big mistake. You don't want to repeat the same workout several times and then be surprised why you're not really seeing much progress. Number 2, program and variation ADHD. So if you're jumping back and forth between different exercises because you heard this one's cool and this one, has harder leverages and better stimulus to fatigue ratio, and this one's more efficient, and this one works this head of the muscle and that head and this fiber and upper lower and lower fiber and middle fiber and vastus medialis and vastus lateralis and all these terms that get thrown around. Yes, these are true concepts, but it gives the beginner lifter and the intermediate lifter a lot to think about, sometimes too much. And new things are exciting, new variations, new programs. People put cool thumbnails, right, for their program and cool names. You're like, oh, I want to try the Spartan program. Whoa, that's cool. I want to try the Gladiator program. And that's all fine and well, guys, but you need to stick to a program in order to reap what you've been sowing. If you just train for like 2 months on a movement, okay, seated overhead press machine, and then you switch to dumbbells, and then you switch to barbells, okay, it's going to be difficult for you to notice a big improvement. You actually need to stick something out for many months, okay? At the start, yes, you can see big gains in just a matter of a few weeks, But as you've been training for years and years, you need to stick things out for months and months to actually see some change. Okay? There's nothing wrong with doing the same variations year round. If they work, if they don't hurt your body, keep going, apply progressions. There's no such thing as needing to confuse your muscles with variations. That's a bunch of nonsense. And back to the programming thing for a second, there's no magic splits. Okay, splits literally don't matter. If you like full body, do full body. If you like upper lower, do upper lower. Guess what? Training your muscles once per week in a bro split is still effective. There's going to be unique adaptations slightly according to each of those, right? Like if you cram more work into one session and that's your one session per week to work your legs, you'll have better work capacity probably a little bit. And if you train more frequently, you may find an adaptation where DOMS isn't as significant, and you find you can just keep up with the work and you don't feel sore from working hard 2 days ago. That's great, but you can't cheat work. You can't magically use the same amount of work divided up differently to get more results. So find a program that works for you and stick to it. I don't care what you call it. I don't use any of the 4 big splits. I have my own custom program. You want to see a video about that, talking more about splits, click on the video in the link in the description. Okay, but that's it. Get a program, be consistent with it, and be consistent with your exercises. Jumping around back and forth every time you see a new one on social media, all right, that's not going to get you where you want to be. Number 3, avoiding hard but vanilla exercises. Yes, there's a lot of cool variations. You can do front squats or, heel elevated front squats, ATG. Man, that sure does look cool. You know, you could do a back squat, or you could do a box squat. Oh, fancy. You know, you could do a deadlift, or you could do a 4-inch deficit deadlift. Ooh, fancy. Guys, before you get caught up in all these different variations, you need to make sure you're doing exercises and doing them hard enough that it makes you uncomfortable. Just trying to use a harder variation to justify using a lighter weight is sometimes what happens instead of a genuine pursuit or a need to pursue better stimulus to fatigue ratio exercise. Certainly there are exercises that, you know, they get more out of less weight, and that's true. But if you're using that as an excuse to avoid hard, okay, but basic and vanilla exercises like a good old-fashioned front squat, or a good old-fashioned conventional deadlift, or a good old-fashioned seated no back support overhead press, or a chest to bar pull-up, if you're trying to obfuscate, you're trying to sneak your way out of hard work with better variations, it's not going to help you. So don't be afraid of hard but vanilla exercises. Normal back squats work just fine. Normal bench press works just fine. Normal strict biceps curls work just fine. You don't have to do incline curls. You don't need flashy variations. Just do the basics and stick to them. Can you branch out and try one that you like better? Yeah, absolutely. But if all your exercises are this complicated thing that has like 5 different words in the name, like this 30-degree paused eccentric, you're going to start sounding like Joel Seedman, where there's like 8 words to describe the exercise. That should never be a thing in your program, or at least it shouldn't be all your exercises like that. It's okay to just be like crunches, bench press, and that's your program. That's fine. In fact, it should be more simple rather than more complicated. Number 4, chasing PRs instead of earning them. Yes, that's right. I said it. You need to earn your PRs and stop just running after new 1-rep maxes and 5-rep maxes and just trying to add as much to your deadlift as possible or as much as to your bench as possible at the expense of everything else in your program. Not the least of which to say the expense of the rep quality and how your joints feel. Okay, just because you want to hit a certain number, a 5-plate deadlift or a 4-plate squat or 3-plate bench, doesn't mean you have to sacrifice the quality of how all your sets look and how your joints feel. You shouldn't be ignoring consistent pain. Do you need to do fancy mobility work or get a massage gun or go to a chiropractor or anything? No, probably not. But if you just cleaned up your technique a little bit on the back squat, the deadlift, the bench press, even the biceps curl, even the pull-up, your joints would feel better. The push-up too. Clean up the quality. You should be doing it with slow, controlled reps. How slow? Well, it doesn't need to be an exaggerated 3 seconds on the way down, but if you're doing a 1 to 2 second eccentric, generally speaking, that works pretty well. You don't even have to count it. It should just look like this. It should look like it's done with control. It doesn't have to be completely robotic, but it shouldn't be bouncy or sloppy. As far as how often to try and hit PRs, whether that's a 10 rep max, 5 rep max, 1 rep max, or even just an AMRAP where you pick a weight and say, I'm going to do as many reps as I can on this day. That's my test to see, how many reps have I added to that weight, or it's my first time using this weight, whatever. That's great for collecting data to see how strong you are, and it's fun, and you can post on social media and all that stuff. But point is, your PR attempts should be weeks apart, if not months apart. I'm at the point where I don't want to really test my strength more than maybe a handful of times a year, because it's very taxing on the body and it's very mentally debilitating when you're, 5 pounds instead of 10 pounds. And the last time you're able to add 10 pounds and you're seeing that diminished return and now it's slowing down. It gets in your head. It becomes very frustrating. So one of the ways you get around that is just slow down. Okay. Instead of testing every 8 weeks, test yourself every 10 weeks. Give it 2 months, give it 3 months. Heck, on your deadlift, give it like 6 months. You're going to add a lot of weight if you haven't been skipping basic progressions on hard but vanilla exercises like back extensions and deadlifts. Allow for months of progress to elapse and then test your strength. Don't just do it every week. It's not worth it. A couple more points. We're almost done, guys. Number 5, you think you're advanced, but really you're not. Yeah, this one basically is going to manifest itself in a few ways. So it could be a combination of these where you think you need better variations because, well, you're too advanced to do the bench press. Clearly the only way I can make gains at this point is if I do the dumbbell bench because it's more optimal for the the chest fibers, and you think it's going to spare your joints and somehow work your chest harder. That's fine. Maybe you do have a more optimal variation that I don't like or I don't know about because I'm just a troglodyte. But the point is, unless you can hit some really serious numbers, like you have 17-inch arms and you can curl 50 pounds for a good amount of reps, or you can do 10 chest bar pull-ups, or you can bench 3 plates, squat 4 plates. Okay, guys, you're probably not as advanced as you think. Just because you've been working out for 5 years, on and off, where part of that time, be honest with yourself, you weren't even writing down the workouts to begin with, doesn't mean you're advanced. I've been working out on and off for quite a number of years. And I've been working out the last several years consistently writing things down. I almost consider it 2 different lives. This is my second life of training. I almost don't even consider my first several years of training to count as experience because they weren't that good. They weren't that consistent. In some ways they were productive and in others they weren't. So don't overestimate how advanced you are. And another way this manifests itself, you don't try and aggressively push progression the way you could on certain exercise, going back to calf raises, or maybe it's your triceps. Whatever those lagging muscle groups are, you might tell yourself, oh, I'm too advanced. Oh, it's not going to grow anymore. I'm at my limit for that muscle. It's just bad genetics. I'm already as advanced as I'm going to be, so I'm just going to not push it. No, if you pushed it harder, closer to failure, one more set, okay? Just one day more frequently a week, okay? Twice a week instead of once a week, 3 times instead of twice a week. If you just push yourself a bit harder on those lagging areas, all of a sudden they'll stop lagging. So you weren't too advanced. You were just getting content. Being content with mediocrity is not good. Being content with excellence is fine. All right. And last but not least, number 6, your dismissal of new challenges. So basically, if someone's like, hey, try this thing, it's really hard and really beneficial, like a front squat, it's uncomfortable. And you're like, no, that looks stupid. I don't want to do that. Or that looks dangerous. Guys, don't be dismissal. Just try it. Try it with a light weight. Okay, doing pause reps on bench press will clean up your technique like nothing else. Same with deadlift. It will clean up your technique for sure. Chest to bar pull downs, right? With the lat pull down machine, do a pause rep. It'll feel really good. You'll get this juicy pump in your lats that you've probably never felt before in your life. Close variations, what I mean by that? Well, from deadlift, you can go from deadlift to Romanian deadlift. My good friend Aiden Insua just made a video about how he avoided doing Romanian deadlifts for years, and yet adding Romanian deadlifts was the thing that got him through a massive deadlift plateau. He was able to add a good amount of pounds to his deadlift, and I think soon he's going to successfully pull 6 plates. So go check out Aiden's channel and subscribe to him. He's a real one. He's a very jacked dude. He mogs me for sure. But by doing that close variation, he broke a plateau. So these are some new ways you can challenge yourself with exercises that are a little bit different, but easily within the same movement pattern and very similar. Won't take you long to learn the new technique, basically, is what I would call close variation. A slightly different, low bar versus high bar squat, front squat versus back squat, strict curl versus just swinging it, things like that, close variations. And then high rep PRs. So on the leg press, challenge yourself to do a hard set of 20. Okay, say I'm going to try 3 plates on each side for 20 reps, or I'll get as close as I can. And then once you do that, several weeks later, add 5 pounds, push it again. Go for some high rep PRs. Don't just go for 1 rep maxes and 5 rep maxes and low rep AMRAPs and things. Push yourself to some disgustingly grindy sets and you will be rewarded. You'll collect new data, you'll get juicy pumps, you'll feel exhausted, your muscles are going to grow like crazy, okay? So high rep PRs are totally worth it. And that just about does it, guys. So those are the 6 workout vices I wanted to cover with you. These habits will get in the way of your progress, so be sure to kill each of them. Maybe only 1 or 2 of these apply to you, but if you're watching this, think about what I had to say. If you disagree with me, go ahead and leave me a comment. If you have a question, same idea. And if you enjoyed today's presentation, well, go ahead and share this with your friends. I'd appreciate that quite a lot. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today. Take care, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.